Yo, what up? So as you saw from the title, I am not gonna be starting a ED Trickster, and this is not gonna ED Trickster guide. However, I am gonna talk about it very briefly because it's been asked so much, and I know it's gonna be asked a lot. The main reason is I think Champ is just better. It gets the same kind of damage, but it's a lot tankier. Now, Trickster is still an option. I just wouldn't really recommend it over Champion if you don't mind leveling a Toxic Rain to like 70 to 80 or something like that. So yeah, here's the best ED that I came up with. Now you can see the damage looks alright, but that's because it has a practically perfect one that you can ever make in Solo Self-Found. It has a minus res helmet. It has the Delirium +2 gloves, which with very good ES, which is really hard to make. It has a +2 amulet with chaos multi, which is a very expensive craft, but it can be done. And then it has glass jewels as well for damage. And this is basically the tankiest ED that I could came up. So this is a max spell suppression. Oh yeah, speaking of spell suppression, the shield has a spell suppression roll with ES on block, and the sadist has a unveiled avoidance stun prefix with 2 T1 ES prefixes and a spell suppress suffix after that. So the gear levels to make it like this is pretty rough, and I'm not sure if I would recommend just going full spell suppression early, which would probably path something like here, grab this stuff here, or go spell block. I feel like the spell block would be better because ES on block once you get that shield, but spell suppression might be overall tankier for bossing because you actually mitigate damage instead. So yeah, I would not recommend this, but I will give this POP if you want to toy around with it. Okay, and now to the actual build. This is the ED champ. As you can see, I have a decent amount of notes here, and I have 2 POBs. I have a leveling POB, and I have the actual build POB. This is the build POB, and the leveling POB is included in the note section. So look at the note section. Okay, and as you can see, we already have a nice little bike here. This is there just so that you can actually realize that there's 2 divine flesh spots for this build. So you pick whatever has the better mods. So ideally, you would have this slot, because this has 2 notables for only 1 extra point. But this one doesn't kill the profane chemistry, and this has 1 less traveling node. Because all of these small nodes could be something really good, like they could be life, chaos, rest, damage, whatever. The notables could be max chaos rest. There's a lot of really good stuff there. Also, I think there's aura effect as well in the smalls. Yeah. We're champion because it got giga buffed. So we're gonna be running determination and grace together, which makes champion pretty absurd for defenses. Obviously, we're gonna go for the fortify. Now that it's gonna be really hard to have fortification on casters, I wouldn't expect to have more than like maybe, well, especially in the ED Trickster, you are not gonna have much because you have to blight for damage. So having a permanent 20 fortification is big. That gives you armor and evasion. Then we'll get inspirational, which is 35% aura effect, which is really big for determination, grace, and obviously we're running malevolence as well. And it gives us a free banner, which we're going to be using a defiance banner, which is also extra armor and evasion, and you can drop it for less damage taken. And then the final one is first to strike, last to fall, which is actually pretty cool because you can use Valrighteous Fire on a spell build to proc this. So Valrighteous Fire takes 60% life, so we go from 100 to 40, and then because this proc we go back to 65. And hopefully you had Essence Drain on a monster when you did it, so you have your region going up, and you also get like on kill effect from here. So the recovery on that is going to be really good. You can see this build has like basically no mana regen. The idea here is to life tap, both your Blight and ED, and then everything else is going to be on mana. So you want to have some mana regen, and you want to have some unreserved mana on this build. And as you can see, that this is like the end game skill tree where you have both Divine Flesh, which the calculations here are incorrect. They are not this big for the elemental hits, because I think POB basically just removes like 50% of the LE damage taken when you take this. It's relatively easy to calculate how good this is if you really wanted to, but the main idea here is, so we're life based, so we're gonna scale Chaos Res, because there is a mastery that gives you chaos damage per Chaos Res, so that it's very, very synergistic. Because now we're also gonna get max Chaos Res, and then half of the LE damage we taken is taken as Chaos instead. And then that means that stuff like Shaper Balls that has Cold Pen, Atsiri Flame Blast that have Fire Pen, the Fire Pen is basically halved, which is incredible amount of defense. Obviously, we have a lot of armor, so we're going to run Molten Shell as well on this build, right? So we get a very big Molten Shell. If you look at here in the calcs, currently with my current gear, this is like a 6k Molten Shell, and it lasts like 8 seconds. Just normal Molten Shell. Well, it's gonna obviously last even longer. And it's pretty straightforward. We go. I guess I should talk about the leveling tree a bit, but I'll just want to talk about the endgame build first. So we're gonna use Magebane, and then we're gonna get Spell Suppress Cap. So we have the Fortification, for the 20% stacks, so 20% less damage. Then we have Magebane, and we have Instinct, which with Suppress. This could also be 10% chance to suppress spell damage if it's hard to get the suppress cap. We don't quite know exactly how much or how easily we can get the suppress on the body armor, but if it's the same as shield, it should be a suffix and it can go up to 34% or something like that. But I think mine is calculated with like level 30 roll or something like that, so it's not even a max roll there. But if you have the cap, debilitate is really, really strong. And then obviously the other masteries here, we want the skill effect duration. There's life and the recovery one. I'm not sure about this one yet. This is something I wanna just kind of feel out, because this lowers the ED region. However, it's like if you compare this node, this is 33 life region right now. But again, this is ignoring the ED, so it might actually be way more than that. Well, it will be way more than that, but it's like 200 life. So this could be another 5% life node instead. In the other trees, here. So this might not be something you want to use end game. I have to find out about that. This is like a feeling thing. The Glass Jewel is gonna be a Chaos Cluster. You need to farm this in foothills, because if it's 68, it's gonna be incredibly hard to roll in compared to item level 50 to 7. Your notables are the only sad thing about this is that the despair effect notable is gone now. It is slightly better than the other options, but basically the only suffix that you can get as a notable on a low level one. So Grim Oath is 68, Unspeakable is 75, so Unholy Grace is the only one, and it's really good for us. Then prefixes, we cannot get Dark Ideation, we can't get Overwhelming Malice, which are both really bad for us. Obviously, Misery Everlasting is no longer a thing, so there is only Unwaveringly Evil, Wicked Pall, and then there is Touch of Cruelty. And all of those three are fine. Literally, doesn't matter which combination of the two prefixes you get, as long as you get three, like all of the three notables. So literally, any combination of notables will work, as long as the jewel is the correct level. Now for the mediums, these you don't actually care about if these are, well, you don't want them from the foothills, because you want Flow of Life in both of them for the life and life region, and it has some decent damage too. And these are item level 68. So these are map level only ones. Now, it shouldn't be too difficult to farm these if you use the Windary farming trick, or obviously buy them from trade, or use the Delirium Atlas, which I'm probably gonna do because it's pretty nice. And then you obviously want Wicked Pal in the other slots. There are some other options as well, but Wicked Pal is the best in my opinion because the skill effect duration. And then this is a simulated reservation small cluster. Now this could be either Determination or Malevolence. I'm not sure if we actually have that, but you just want, you know, this is gonna be 6%, and then this is gonna be 50% for the 50% hours. Now, before you have this, you cannot run all of the 3 hours. So you can run something like Skitterbots until you get this, and then you do like Skitterbots, Malevolence, and then Determination because you want the buffed up Molten Shell, and you could run, instead of running like Grace Reservation, this could be increased evasion rating from body armor, and you're probably gonna run a hybrid evasion ES chest early on because it's easier to color. But end game you definitely want that. Obviously here we want reservation. Here's the flat life, and that's about it. There's a Flask. The 10% recover is it's decent. The utility flask is okay, maybe. There's a bunch of useful ones here, but I'm not planning to use anything. Overcharge for 4 points and getting 100% increased charge duration is pretty amazing for mapping. This is more of like a bossing POB, but consider dropping something for this. For example, you could drop this slot for spreading rot and instead path it from here. That gives you some points that you could instead drop into Overcharge. Iron Will is absolutely amazing for this once you have about 180. I'm gonna actually show you another tree here that has it. This is like the baseline where you literally didn't get nothing else but the reservation jewel, but like the reservation glass jewel, so you can run all of the 3 main auras. And this right now, for 2 points, we would gain 8.8% damage, which is 4.4 per node, and you get a tiny bit of life from the strength as well. So once you have around 180 strength, then taking this for 2 points is really good. I think that's like 7% more, but it depends a bit on your other gear levels as well. But this is absolutely going to be used on the non-divine flesh trees, I believe. Speaking of trees, I got a couple options. We have the obvious endgame. We have, if you don't have a divine flesh, but you have the cluster jewel, we have divine flesh without the cluster jewels. Obviously, this is again, you pick whatever it's better one. Then there's the base, and then there's a leveling tree here as well. So this is just to get you some idea if you forgot and you don't want to open the leveling BOB. But speaking of that, here's the leveling BOB. I'll open it really quick. You can go over that a bit. So you level as, again, there's notes here. This is pretty useful notes for the actual leveling. But here we start with, literally you just go through the attack speed here. You go all the way here and you cap Graceful Assault. The idea here is to get the Onslaught, so you don't have to use Onslaught support gem anymore. So you use Bleeding Steel into Shattering Steel from level 12. And then you just like start setting up. You might take Fury Bolts for some extra damage if you want, because it is projectiles. You could potentially, nah, I don't think you can want to go there. So you basically just start setting up. You take some life, some regen there, and you set up for the Toxic Rain, which is somewhere around 30 when you should probably start doing this. You can see it doesn't take any respecs to do this, but you really want to have exceptional performance. And I think you really want to have Avatar of the Hunt before you start doing that. I mean, you could also take Deadly Draw, but I'd recommend taking this first. And obviously you get more duration there. You get phasing and movement speed. And then you get damage while you have a totem, because you're using Ballista totems as well. And then you ever just start going into here. The moment you get Charisma here with Reservation Efficiency, and then later on you also get Conqueror's Efficiency. So more is when you can start running Determination, Malevolence, and then you can either do Skitterbots or like Clarity and Vitality. a bit. Also, I'm gonna be using Lifetap myself while leveling Toxic Rain because I can't be arsed to use a Mana Flask personally. And then we get to the 85 tree. So this is the tree, what it's gonna be like. At 85, you could already start going ED earlier, but I think the earliest you can do that, especially in solo self-found, is like 80 or something like that. And then there's like a level 90 POP, which is why aren't you ED yet? So if you were planning to go Toxic Rain, this is not the Toxic Rain POP. This POP is there just to minimize the amount of respecs. This is like, if I remember correctly, this is roughly like 30 or so. 30 or so respec points, which is like 6-10 regrets, depending how many quests you did. And then we have the basic ED starting trees. Speaking of ED, all of this here is like the, I'd say, bare minimum ED gear. So basically, you just want to make, you can literally just craft the +1 once, farm a tiny bit of heist maybe, and you should get quality gems when you're doing foothills or your class jewels, and then you just do the +1 recipe in a crystal wand because int is gonna be a problem otherwise, and it's just the best base with the int we have. And then you just craft spell damage or chaos multi, and those 2 ones should be enough. And then everything else is just literally just life. But yeah, this is the ED, right? So this is 78.3, so we can compare this to the level, is this level 83? No, this is 60. So this 3. So as you can see, the respec isn't massive. You just basically take this out, take the duration out here, and then you put it here, and you take this, and you should probably start with the the Ellie Res and Chaos Res here. So eventually this is probably CB immune, or reduced effect of curses, if you want that for mapping. But the first one is probably gonna be Ellie Res, Chaos Res. This depends heavily on, do you have the Chaos Res to take this? This isn't worth it until you have, what's it like? I'd say you have to get at least like 6% dot multi out of this, which means you need like what, 24 Chaos Res before this is worth taking. So this depends on that as well a lot. And obviously, we took the Iron Will here. If you look at this, with the current level of gear, with 200 strength, this is almost 10% more damage for 2 points. So this is absolutely worth taking. And none of this gear actually has strength on it. So remember, strength is gonna be life and damage for you, so that's kind of nice. And then there's, just filling in some points. And usually, if this is like the level 95 tree already, so you should already be looking at the endgame POB at that point. Okay, and again, this also has a link to the actual endgame POB. So back there. So yeah, stupid defense, good enough damage. Like, the damage is actually close to, like, if I put the similar ones as the Trickster had, this is now 2.3 mil. But this is ignoring Valright's Fire and the other, which I'll talk very shortly. So, because we have so much duration scaling, we can just actually click Valright's Fire. This is going to last almost 11 seconds. Like 10 point something seconds. Really nice. And as you can see, it is a pretty big damage buff, right? And when we do this, the other procs, which is 20-second duration of 100 increased damage, 25 attack, cast, and movement speed, and some additional fist damage reduction. So that alone brings us here, which is pretty much the same as the ED was. This POP doesn't have minus Chaos Res here. It has a different gloves, which is, there's a guide on the notes how to make this. And this is only a +1 amulet with a lower chaos multi. And the anoint for this build is also super cheap. It's only 2 black oils, and this is literally the best sort of anoint for damage. You should absolutely take that. As soon as you have 2 black oils and a crimson, slap it on your amulet. Doesn't have to be good amulet, take it. It's really, really strong. And my rings don't have the damage suffix, which you can get for this build because you just slam Essence of Deliriums until you get some other good suffixes, and then you just craft life, and it's done. So you can get up to 30% more, or 30% extra dot multi there. Because that Glass Jewel is a lot of damage as well. And yeah, so this is gonna do more damage than the Trickster. It has spell suppression, it has a fortitude, it has like over 30k armor and evasion, it has an insanely long Molten Shell. I'm gonna be taking Maven explosions with this build, like the memory game explosions, because I suck at it, so I'm just gonna eat it instead. What else? So yeah, ED on the gloves. Oh yeah, you could actually run Blight on the gloves as well, because since we have a Lifetap, we actually have a proper 6-link option for ED now, which is kind of interesting. You could use Void Manip here, right? We have Control Destruction, Swift Action, Lifetap, Void Manip, and then there's Empower or Efficacy. So you could actually run a 6-link ED on your body armor on this build. I don't usually recommend it, but you could do that, and it might potentially be better. The only KO here is that you actually have to get the +2 AoE on your gloves then, or well, ideally you'd run Delirium +2 then. There is a way to craft that too. I'm gonna probably look into it, but... And the reason why ED might be good using on the chest for 6-link is because Lifetap, and it's gonna help us with the recovery a lot, because we get regen based on the ED damage, right? And yeah, as you can see, we have Death Rush. This is how you get your Onslaught for this build, for mapping. And you can replace this with another Vermilion ring for even more life once you get a boots like this. So you need a Redeemer boots, so they can roll Spell Suppress. We don't know exactly if it can get the same, like if it can get 22%. If this follows the suite of Archery Step went from 16 to 26, so Redeemer from 12 to 22 sounds about right. So you get that, some life, and then you craft the Onslaught. So that's the ideal setup for the boots. But Death Rush is really, really, really strong, especially early on. It's going to help you get the Chaos Rest. It has a lot of armor, has some life. It's just a really, really solid ring. I think that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else too much to talk. Again, note sections had a lot of stuff. There's a big list of upgrades that my BOB doesn't have. And all of this, if you play in trade, are absolutely obtainable, including the amulet. I think there's even a guide how to make the amulet. Yeah, there's a way to craft a +2 amulet. It's gonna be a lot of exalts. It's gonna be a lot of imprint, but it is doable. There's a couple wand crafting guides, starting with the endgame wand, the mid tier, which is what I have here on the BOB that you're gonna see. And then there's also another 2 alternate options for the mid-tier wand with a slightly less damage, but a lot easier to craft. And then I also included a video, like older video, of me explaining basically the basics of why the item level matters and that kind of stuff. So that's a good watch. There's the gloves craft. Body armor, we don't know yet. Just come ask me, you know, maybe two days into the league, how to make this. If you're interested in how do we actually end up crafting this, I have to look into it a bit more because we don't have the info yet. But yeah, I'm not too worried about not getting the spell suppression because we have points here to take spell suppression. Again, this could be another 10% spell suppression there. And we can also just keep using the Archery Step. They're really good boots. But yeah, I don't want to make this video any longer than it already is. Got any questions? Come ask on Twitch or Discord. Link should be on the description, and I'll yeah, you know my level in Toxic Rain maps, I would recommend this over Trickster right now. Yeah, I'll see you guys later.